Electronic Arts, better known as that which shall not be spoken, has survived partially due to the participation trophy that is Apex Legends. Seriously, Voldemort over here is basically on a dialysis machine given the lackluster lineup of games being released. This is largely in part to their tendency to subvert our expectations, even with their track record. A game that looks great turns out alright, and a game that looks alright turns out to be a complete mess. This isn't to say they've contributed nothing. It Takes Two was a breath of fresh air, and Knockout City was entertaining for 2 weeks. I understand the difference between publisher and developer companies, but when the direct actions of the publisher restrict the progress of the dev team, it's enough to make the consumer consider playing a Soulsborne game. EA's ineptitude and inconsideration of their player base is not a new development. Everyone knows EA is a scummy company, but I'd like to ask the question, where did it start, how did it happen, and did I really just diss a Soulsborne series? To answer this, we need to go back to 1991.
Here we go.
Video games and sports, like water and fire. One is a surface that we barely understand, with time and research leading to breakthroughs and new developments. And the other was made by stupid monkeys. The idea of implementing a physical sport into a virtual setting was revolutionary, to say the least. This wasn't to say that EA was the first to think of this, since Tennis for Two debuted in 1958. Instead, EA had the breakthrough of making virtual sports actually fun. Starting with a little game called Earl Weaver's Baseball, implementing the use of artificial intelligence to actually provide a challenge and stakes for each game. Coupled with the astounding graphics, for the time, and controls, this game handled like a fine steed amongst the plains of Montana. Realizing they had something, EA Sports was founded, releasing game after game in a similar fashion, dipping into every sport imaginable, except for the fun ones like croquet or spleef. This gave EA some room to work, adding and updating every game that would precede the last, giving a stable increase and positive growth for the V-sport industry. However, this trend did not come without its caveats. First of all, you face the problem of the hedonic treadmill. This meaning the more you add, the less there is to implement, causing the old game to become the new norm. This means that over time, games would plateau rather than climb in quality. There are only so many quality of life patches you can pass before you run out. Second, repetition is inevitable. These games of physical activity have existed for hundreds of years. Stability and consistency are how they are meant to be played. Adjusting or changing the core mechanics would mean an entirely different experience. With this in mind, there are really no ways to change Madden and make it fresh while keeping that same Madden feel that hooked people in. Unless you made a future Madden with jetpacks and gravity surges, which would be horrible in its own right. Seriously, people already believed Rocket League is fun. Now Infinite Warfare, that's where I draw the line. Third, there's simply no room to grow. I discussed this in my last point, but in a field where the only sequel is adjusting and reselling the previous title, there's not a lot of room for expansion. Where this is solely because of the genre, not lack of creativity. God! There's not much they could have done to avoid this. Of course, as we all know, push came to shove and out came Pandora's box. Ladies and gentle people, a comprehensive understanding of every EA Sports game in existence. Need for Speed, Porsche Unleashed, SimCity, Rugby, Tiger Woods PGA Tour, UFC, Knockout Kings, Team Sonic Racing, Delta Force, Lambo Rio, NBA 2000 through the 20s, and so on. Madden, FIFA, NHL, NASCAR, Supercross, Superbike, Sid Meier's Black and White Creature IO, Championship, Shogun, Outdoorsman Mania, WCW Mayhem, Street Scare, Subcommand 007, Cricket, Majestic Yassen.
That's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Star Wars has always been an ambitious series. Just when you think you know one thing, you're hit with a new element that meshes together beautifully. The Clone Wars gave us context into the relationship behind Obi-Wan and Anakin, making their bond seem more stable and all the more heart-wrenching when the fated duel would take place. The movie gave us Ahsoka, a fan-favorite character that represents what Anakin could have been, and a lot more even if she did start as the worst character ever. And the 2003 series gave us a reason to fear Grievous. So, translating a world like this into a video game should be just as dynamic. In the words of IGN, I want to feel like a Jedi. There are a lot of games that explore the passive and direct implications of Force. Implications, ignore I said that. Fallen Order shows the athleticism that follows being a Jedi, along with using your connection to the Force to interact with sacred relics or general terrain. Force Unleashed did a great job of using the intense beat-em-up gameplay to show just how and why the Force is a devastating power, and can be used to cause real damage when handled correctly. But no games at the time showed what it would be like to play the classic heroes and villains in a Conquest-style battle box. Unless you count the father of them all, Star Wars Battlefront 2, 2005. When DICE announced that they were making a modern take on the Battlefront genre, the public was ecstatic. We had Vader, Luke, even Palpatine got up from his dialysis machine to get in on this. All they have to do is copy the framework and improve the mechanics. But Donkey put it best.
This is EA, okay? They'll find some way to fuck it up. They found a way to fuck it up.
Battlefront 1 had its promise, but failed to deliver on the ambition that the original franchise had. Playing as a stormtrooper was honestly pretty accurate, and that's a problem. On top of all that, the ground infantry was fucking boring. No one cares about playing a heavy trooper, everyone just wants to play the characters that really matter, like Nia Nub. I don't know who this is. Around the launch of Battlefront 2, DICE had taken a moment to gain clarification and decided what to do, working out better mechanics for game modes, optional classes, and even heroes. Even deciding to make all the DLC free. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Zombies suck, but this game's pretty good. Garden Warfare is a unique take on the shooter genre, opting for more dynamic gameplay and wacky physics to result in an overall fun game for the consumer. You know, video games. You could be a missile-hopping foot soldier, a trap-setting cactus, a teleporting scientist with a shotgun, or you could just sit in the corner with the chomper and cheese the whole game. However you had fun was the right way to play, even if that means getting your IP pulled. This approach made Garden Warfare the 4th best-selling game the week of its release, so naturally, EA took notice. Garden Warfare 2, baby! This game freaking rules. It took everything the first game had and cranked it to 1,000. They said, you like the chomper? Put an engine in that bitch. Foot soldier? Fuck it, give him a minigun. On top of all that, they took 3 completely different styles of play for all 6 new characters. Sniping, burst fire, beams, melee, and LMGs. The gang had a new turf and was stretching their creative control. EA did it good, managing to produce a game that is not only fun but timeless, with players keeping the servers active to this very day. Honestly, if you have the time and money, I'd highly recommend picking up this game. I'm probably going to make a video on it eventually, sometime. So, yeah. Now the only thing we have to look forward to is Garden Warfare 3, which we still haven't heard any news about, so it's probably hard in development. When the hell did that happen? I'll be honest and say, I haven't played Battle for Neighborville, on the account that I didn't know it existed. So, I won't critique the game itself. That's a video for a later date. But for a company all about their grand spotlights and heavy commercials, zero news about this game until it was already out. We saw the ad campaign for Garden Warfare 1 and 2, so this is just a letdown. Seriously, you're okay with dressing a guy like a corn?
My mommy said she wishes you were dead.
I have a confession to make. This is not an EA/neg post. I do not hate EA, nor do I believe that they are the worst company around. That honor goes to... Rather, I would like to ask what happened to EA. EA Sports was the start of their ambition and drive to produce unique quality games. Clearly, there once was an inspired mind behind these actions, but greed has led them to a path of mediocrity and laziness. Why work for your money when you can just not? IPs with great recognition such as Star Wars is an easy cash cow that makes its own sales, regardless of the quality. Just look at Star Wars Connect. This should not exist. The Rancor was kinda cool. Fuck this! Although they more often than not give no effort into promising franchises, they still do care to a certain extent. Is Electronic Arts to be held accountable for releasing half-finished messes riddled with bugs and glitches? Yeah, definitely. But are we as a group to blame for keeping them like that? Think about it. Where would they get their money if not for our sales? If Apex is any indicator, it's possible to make a fun game while monetizing its potential without screwing over its community. No, instead the community killed itself. But that's where I'm going to close out. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you taking the time to hear out my thoughts on this fossil of a company. If you're interested in more videos like these, sit tight because these take a while to make. If you're not already subscribed, it does help me out, and it helps you stay up to date with my video releases. Until next time, respect your elders.